This is quite good. And it surprised me by how good it was. Hi, I started reading a book and you don't know anything about me. Why would you? We just met. So let's pretend that we know each other. Let's skip all the pleasantries and let's pretend that you know this one fact about me. And that is, I love a good murder mystery. I love a good murder mystery. It's second only to my first love of genre, which is fantasy. I love fantasy, followed by a good murder mystery. And good murder mysteries are hard to come by, but you know what? I love them. I love them. I have such a low threshold for murder mysteries because it's something where it's like, okay, brain empty, no thoughts. I'm going along for the ride. I'm going along for the ride. I'm not investing too heavily into characters. I'm here for the plot. If you can shock and amaze me, I'm there for it. I'm there for it. And I think my introduction was into okay, this is a thing. This is going to be one of my little identifiers that I can bring up when I introduce myself to people. I believe that was Agatha Christie. I got introduced to Agatha Christie, I think when I was like 16, 17, and then I started reading her books. And they're great. They're great. And I would actually love to do a video about how they low-key kind of bastardized Hercule Poirot from the books to the adaptations of the movies, but that's another video for another day. What you need to know about me is that I'm here for the ride, I'm here for the journey, not necessarily the characters. Characters are enticing, they're interesting, but make no mistake, I want to know who done it and how they did it and why they did it, you know? So I started reading this book, and it actually comes after I just finished I believe it's The Housemaid. I've recently finished The Housemaid, and that's not a murder mystery, it's more of a psychological thriller, but it definitely has that, okay, we're building up suspense, we're building up something bad, something sinister is happening. It's in that same vein, right? And The Housemaid was, again, like I said, head empty, thoughts, or a couple of thoughts in the sense that, like, you're taking me along for the ride, and it's good, but I still have some thoughts in the sense of, like, the writing. But it had been such a long time since I'd read a mystery that I think I allowed myself to forget that when it's good, it can be good. The Housemaid, this is not. The Housemaid, this is not. I felt The Housemaid was slightly predictable, but not in a bad way, in a way that's like, well, yeah. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I think my gripe was more with, like, the writing. I just felt the writing was a little bit simplistic, and again, it's a thing where you're there for the plot, but again, it's like a little bit simplistic, a little bit repetitive. This is quite good, and it surprised me by how good it was, the writing, because I'm here for a murder mystery. I'm not necessarily here to, like, be like ooh and odd by, like, the type of writing I'm seeing, the type of writing I'm reading. This was really good, and it caused me to, like, make all these little bookmarks, because I dog ear my books, sorry. All these little dog ears, it's the parts where I'm like, ooh, that was pretty. That was really, really pretty. So this book, I think it definitely hails from, or at least it's inspired by, there's this movie called, I think, Finding Sheila, or something about Sheila, or something. I just know that it has something to do with the name Sheila. And I actually watched that movie last year when I was in a major, like, murder mystery movie, like, kick. I watched it last year, and then I realized, oh, Glass Onion definitely took a lot of inspiration from this. So in the sense that, okay, it's a rich guy who people think is maybe a genius, and the people in his web are dependent on him but don't necessarily like him, and he has things on all of them that could cause exposure or causes them to, like, fall in line. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. This is set in modern times. It's a UK perspective, so London, which is, again, another thing that I'm like, interesting. And it follows, it's called The Club. Basically, there are a bunch of clubs being created by this guy called Ned Groom. And the club is this, like, think about Soho House. It's this exclusive club that's like been passed on from generation to generation of this guy's family. So Ned Groom, who is the current iteration of the owner here, he has completely expanded what the club is. Before, it used to be just like one place, I believe in London, where, you know, artists and people could come, and that was kind of it. That was what it was before. And now he's created clubs all around the world. There are clubs in different continents and things like, each one grand and more like crazy than the last one. And yes, it still is a hub for like artists and things like that, but make no mistake, these are rich people. These are millionaires. These are not starving artists. These are millionaires, you know what I mean, being invited to these clubs. So there's a launch for a new club. It's called the Island Home. I don't know why I've been saying the club. It's because it's called the club, but it's actually called the Home. It's called the Home. Every single iteration is called the Home Club. So maybe it's Shanghai Home, the Island Home, which is the one that we're talking about. So they they bought an entire island, and they built this like exclusive club on this island. It's interesting that they brought in a couple of people for the launch, and we can tell that something is slowly unveiling. It's done in multiple perspectives, which usually I'm not a fan of because people don't do it right. But this is quite nicely done. There's not a single perspective that I don't look forward to. There's not a single perspective where like when I get there I'm rolling my eyes and groaning because I'm like, oh my god, when am I gonna, let's get to the next part. You know what I mean? So that's good. What I will say though is that it kind of grinds to a halt whenever they introduce like a Vanity Fair article, because Vanity Fair articles are interposed between the different POVs, and the Vanity Fair article is about what happens at the Island Home. So it's kind of happening. We get one timeline where we're seeing it as it's going down, and then we have another one which is the Vanity Fair article, which is retrospectively talking about what happened on the island, which again, it kind of grinds the situation to a halt. So I don't necessarily love it. The only reason why I like it is because I'm like, okay, I can kind of tell who's still alive because like who's still alive to tell the tale, literally who's still alive to give interviews for this Vanity Fair article. So I'm like, okay, they're still alive, they're gonna be okay. Who else? Who's still alive? Who's dead? So we do know that the owner of the home, Ned, he's dead, or at least he's disappeared. We don't know where he is. We don't know who offed him. And we have a couple of people who would have motives for killing him. Like I said, it's like that movie Sheila or perhaps Glass Onion, if Glass Onion went above the route of killing Miles Braun. But it's a couple of people who are dependent on him, who are possibly being blackmailed by him, and they all have motives for killing him. So I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and it's very witty, and sometimes a little bit poetic. There's something that I read this one time, and I wouldn't know which one, and I don't have the time to start flicking through and seeing who's to find it. But they said of a character who has like a penchant or has a skill about knowing who's on the come up, knowing who's about to just blow up and be popular and become like a huge celebrity. The way they described it was so beautiful. They were like, oh, she has this sense, or she has this ability to sniff out the gunpowder before this keg or this explosion of a star or something. I was like, oh my god, that's quite good. So yes, I'm still ongoing, as you can see. I think I'm like nearly halfway there, but it's been a good fun read, and those are my first thoughts about it.